Hey y'all, welcome to Gadfly, the podcast about third parties, fringe candidates, and just generally weird American electoral history. I'm Dusty Wilson.
I'm Una O'Leary.
I'm on 3 hours of sleep, y'all. Woo! I just peaked the mic.
Dusty's high on midterms.
Oh, sweet Lord. Yeah, I haven't felt this way since midterms. It's all-nighters used to be nothing for this old brain back when, Coke Black was a product, which I believe was in a tiny little Coke bottle. They also put coffee in it. Now they just say it's Coke with coffee, but back in the mid-aughts.
I don't remember this at all.
Yeah. Oh, mid-aughts in the 2006s. My entire senior thesis was fueled by Coke Black and gas station speed.
Coke Black, please sponsor us.
They went out of business. I think it's only available in France now. So
ooh, love that.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm on that's not available in the States? I am on nasal spray Sudafed, just pure Sudafed that's in a nasal spray that I got in England.
We are
sure as shit can't get that here.
We are top tier tonight then. To make things even more fun, I'm just gonna spoil it now because fuck it, why not? So in trying to figure out scheduling, since Thanksgiving holiday is upon us, I figured we could try to get some stuff done pretty quick and schedule things ahead of time. Mm-hmm. And I thought tonight, I was like, we only have one more part of Huey Long to go. And Huey Long attacked me from the grave and said, motherfucker, my life is too interesting to just have one more part to go. So we're recording part 5 and 6 tonight to end out the Huey Long story. So we'll have a break at some point and then we'll act like it's a new day, as podcasts are wont to do.
But just so people are aware, they won't hear 6 for a couple weeks. It's just when they get to part 6.
Yeah.
It's like, if we don't sound our usual punchy selves, and we're not commenting on how our Thanksgiving went.
Right, yeah.
In the past tense. That is why. That'll actually be like kind of more interesting too. If, like weeks later, still hear Dusty and Una just be like, "Oh, we are still in Huey Long, longer and longest."
No, it's like I legitimately was researching so much about Huey. I had a nightmare about him, which is the first time research has led me to a nightmare. So I guess,
and it definitely wasn't a dream. It was a nightmare.
I was sent back to 1930s Louisiana, and I had to somehow pass a bill, and it was not fun. So that's the long story, to be like, we might be a little punchy, things might get a little weird, but it's going to be a fun night, and by God, we are ending the Huey Long saga tonight.
If it kills us.
Oh my God. All right, so we got a lot to cover. So I'm just going to dive right in after that rambling start. When we last left Huey, he had just survived impeachment. However, the impeachment charges still hang over his head due to the trial being called off rather than Huey being acquitted by the state Senate. And this meant Huey would always be one unfriendly state Senate away from the charges being resurrected and him being kicked out of office and, by law, banned from Louisiana politics for 25 years. So really, there is no better time for him to make the leap to step 3 of his political plan, run for Senate. Oh, and I should mention too that this is coming less than 2 years after his only term as governor.
Yeah, this has underpants gnomes question mark profit vibes.
And I should mention too that at this time in Louisiana, it's very much Virginia governor rules where you're only allowed to serve one term, and then someone else has to run, and you could run again for another term after that's done, but you're not allowed to do back-to-back terms.
Yeah, they're more the sharing is caring.
Right. Look, if we're gonna have machine politics running all of this, we need to make sure everyone gets a turn so no one loses their mind.
It's checks and balances, people. Right. I don't know what more you want from me.
Yeah.
Besides a functioning democracy.
No. So the first real sign that Huey was going to make this leap to the federal stage came on March 26th, 1930, when he started his own newspaper. So Huey was getting really pissed off that all of the newspapers in New Orleans and Baton Rouge and most of the state really did not like him.
Because he burned those bridges, Huey.
And the governor's mansion. Well, no, he tore that down, but still. The funny thing about this, though, is, he started his own newspaper called the Louisiana Progress. And for progressive candidates of the time, this actually wasn't that weird of a thing to to do. Because most newspapers were based in the city, and at the time, cities were actually bastion of conservative thought. It was kind of hard to get a progressive newspaper out there. And so a lot of candidates would just make their own. And this was something that ended up happening in Wisconsin, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Texas. So Huey's just kind of following the crowd at this point. Huey offered his newspaper for free for the first few editions, which helped grow his circulation to 125,000 people. And really, other than the clear pro-Huey bias when it came to political news, the rest of the newspaper was just a boring old news outlet.
Love it.
Personally, I'm a huge fan of their movie section, which was written by, quote, Patsy, the Hollywood stenographer. Yep, Patsy's here to tell you about Clark Gable and, Fatty Arbuckle. I forget who was doing movies in 1930.
Yeah. She was hitting those 5 keys and giving you 1,000 words by the end of the week.
So rumors of Huey running for Senate would come throughout most of 1930, but he played coy about running. If he was to run, he would have a very difficult task of beating an incumbent. And this particular incumbent was the briefest of former allies, Joseph Ransdell. Joseph was a staunch conservative, an old-school politician, and he'd held the seat for 32 years, or since Huey was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And while that in itself would be pretty daunting, the reason Huey held off on announcing his run was due to a bit of a legal issue. So if Huey were to win, then his term of senator would start on March of 1931. However, his term as governor wouldn't be over until May of 1932. And in normal situations, that just means you resign from being governor and you go to be a senator. But people who do that didn't have Lieutenant Governor Paul Sear waiting in the wings to take the job.
Oh, no.
And the last thing Huey wanted to do was to just give the governorship to Paul. Or as he put it to the press, quote, I love him too much to impose the duties of governor on him.
Like, really? Or is this a backhanded compliment?
Oh, this is backhanded bullshit. He's being an ass.
Damn.
He's being a troll. So he had to try to figure out what to do because he couldn't be governor and senator at the same time. Beyond obvious reasons, the Louisiana Constitution, as weird and convoluted as it is, did have a stipulation that said you could not have a state and federal job at the same time. I'm sad they had to write that down, but here we are. So Huey would have to spend the lead up to the race trying to find an option that suited him and got him everything that he wanted. But Huey would also tell the press that he really wasn't in much of a rush. As he put it, all he had to do was say he was running and he'd win. In mid-July, Huey announced that he was going to run against Ransdell for the Senate. And on top of that, when he won, he would finish out his term as governor. And then when that term was done, then he was going to go to the Senate and just leave the seat blank, just empty for those few years.
Just walk away.
Well, and to hammer that home, he told the press, quote, Paul Sear will never be governor of the state for 1 minute. The problem, yeah, he, to be that petty to a man who is like 6'20", like the John Fetterman of the time, if he knew dentistry, is his lieutenant governor. He's just being a complete prick to him in public. The problem, though, is he has to figure out the governor-senator thing. And Huey being Huey, he found the tiniest of linguistic loopholes to make his plan work. The official plan was, if he won the senatorial election, he would stay as governor. And he could do this because if he's not seated as a senator, as in sworn in and all that in Washington, D.C., then he's not being paid to be a senator. And the Constitution stipulated it has to be paying jobs. You could have a state job and take a free job for the federal government, but you couldn't if it was paid. So Huey was just not going to get confirmed as a senator until his term was done.
It's like dodging a solicitor, but in this case, it's your paycheck.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, too, is that he knew he couldn't leave Louisiana because, as it is with most governors in all the states, the emergency thing is when you leave the state, the lieutenant governor becomes acting governor. And so if he left the state at any point, Paul Sear could try a coup and take over the entire state.
Yeah, he can't even go under for a simple procedure at a hospital at this point.
Yeah. As for denying Louisiana a Senate vote, Huey pointed out that with Ransdell in the seat, it essentially had been vacant for 32 years anyway, so what's another year gonna do?
Burn! That's the Huey Long we know.
And I did write down, it is a pretty sick burn. But what makes it worse is he's accurate. Amongst all senators, Ransdell was about as ineffective as you could get, especially considering he'd been there for 3 decades. There were 2 things he did in 30 years. He pushed for support of public health, but only in the vaguest of terms and with no plans of his own, and he was all about flood mitigation. However, the problem is he consistently supported the levee system, which, as we mentioned in 1927, catastrophically failed and flooded pretty much the entire region. So even in the wake of that, he still thinks we just have to rebuild the levees, but make them taller.
because he knew great songs would be written from that moment. He's thinking ahead.
He's doing the lazy work to benefit us. The other problem with Ransdell is he refused to adapt to the modern world and voted as if he was still in the 19th century. His sole economic talking point was espousing old-fashioned values to staunch the rise of socialism.
Cool. We've all been through World War One, though, so like
no, it's still the Spanish-American War. I'm still stuck on that. Let me read how that ended, and we'll be good. When Huey entered the race, Ransdell seemed nonplussed. After all, he had the support of the old regulars. He had run unopposed for years, and at least according to Huey, Ransdell had a war chest of over $1 million. Plus, a challenger never had succeeded in ousting an incumbent senator that had the support of the state machine in Louisiana's entire history. So when Joseph opened his campaign on July 31st, he was presented with a feather duster by a group of housewives to symbolize cleaning up D.C. and the senator's own clean record. Is the sort of thing that is just like back of the newspaper information. Ransdell accepted this gift and extolled the feather duster as the ultimate symbol of old-fashioned feminine duties. That surely the home would fall apart without women cleaning it and staying home and being quiet most often.
And what's this? They can vote now? When did that happen?
No, they cannot. I will vote against it till the end of days. However, Huey was keen to note that one of the things that had a very common similarity to the feather duster was Joseph Ransdell's goatee. And from here on out, he decided he was going to give a nickname to Joseph, quote, the old feather duster.
Oh boy.
Yeah, if you thought Trump nicknames was like a new low, no. Huey kind of invented the new version of that.
Yeah, no, this is giving Bush vibes. Heavy.
Yeah. Huey would officially begin his campaign on August 2nd, which gave him barely more than a month to campaign before the primary election. His main focus was going to be expressing how allies of the old regulars had tanked his plans, and that sending Huey to the Senate would be the best way to show them that they had not succeeded. He would also start up his circular program again and spread a variety of claims in them, such as Ransdell, the old regulars, and every newspaper in the state were trying to defeat Huey, and by proxy, the people of Louisiana, that Ransdell had been pulling favors for fruit importer Samuel Zamuri, and he claimed that in exchange for getting a job for one of Ransdell's relatives, Ransdell had gotten the War Department to send troops into Central America to protect Zamuri's business interests. Would not be the first time we had done that.
No, I mean, listen, who hasn't had a Chiquita banana?
Right. Yes. And these circulars also claim that Ransdell's ineffective work led to New Orleans losing the following: an office of the U.S. Mint, an office of the Federal Reserve Bank, the New Orleans U.S. Navy Yards, the U.S. Army military post at Jackson Barracks, and a station of the transcontinental airmail route. He didn't really say how they lost those things and how those were Joseph Ransdell's fault, but more alluded that he's not doing anything and he's never tried to save these things.
Sure, yeah, that's completely accurate. You know, he certainly hasn't lifted a finger to push in favor of this, but I can also see the, like, I don't know, again, like Prescott, Bush, and Roosevelt's of the Northeast looking down at Mardi Gras and being like, oh no, we can't put anything there.
Well, the women think.
No, that's a silly place.
Yeah. Well, and I think we talked about this a couple episodes ago. The idea of like a backbench representative or congressman or someone whose whole job is to just be present, vote how they're told, and go home. But a backbench senator is a rarer bird of someone who reaches a very high position in American politics and decides, I'm good, give me my check, nice to meet you. In total, Huey sent out about 2 million circulars across the state, and in some cases, he sent copies of his newspaper along with them. And they were also paid for in a highly questionable way. 2 months prior to announcing his run, Huey requested very heavily that all state employees should donate 10% of their salaries to his campaign.
A tithe?
Yeah, you got yourself a motherfucking tithe.
No!
This garnered $30,000 for the campaign, or about $535,000 in today's money.
No!
Might I mention, at the beginning of the Depression, he is requesting a tithe from the employees of the state.
Again, I know everything goes by parish, but people like.
Well, and I'm sure in his mind is like the only reason these people even have a job is because they supported Huey. So of course they're going to be fine giving me 10% of their money.
I can see the people feeling like, well, it's not like I'm going to get another job, so
Yeah.
I guess I will give 10% of my hard-earned income. Boo.
So, like I said, he only got $30,000 from this, and this would actually be the majority of the money that he raised against Ransdell's $1 million. And it's because to Huey, this was actually all he thought he needed to beat Joseph Ransdell. Huey would also resume his statewide speaking tours, but this time with a new twist. He had a sound truck constructed so that when he spoke, his voice would be amplified and he wouldn't have to strain himself for everyone to hear. He would only travel to parish capitals and larger towns, and this was thanks to the truck itself drawing people in from the surrounding smaller towns just to see this mechanical marvel. During these speeches, folks got to hear his new, more nationally focused platform. And it included flood mitigation, in abandoning the levee system and moving more towards reservoirs, which we talked a lot about during the Faith Spotted Eagle episode, farm relief, where he wanted to do something called export debenture, where the federal government compensates farmers for marketing surplus crops abroad at a loss. The major problem that was going on right now is farmers were making more than what was needed. And so essentially the cost that you could get at market for a lot of products was just barely anything. So the idea was you could send your crops overseas, sell them at a smaller rate, and then the government will pay you the remainder of what you would expect to get.
So at least the food isn't going to waste. You're getting paid.
Exactly, yeah. Foreign affairs, but the only topic he had for this was, hey, we shouldn't send troops to Central America to defend banana farms.
Agreed. Great.
Labor, where he stated he fully supported unions and the ban on forcing employees to sign agreements that they wouldn't unionize.
But they should pay me 10% of their wages. Anyway, I'm Huey Long.
Yeah.
Vote for me.
Working for me is its own union. But the thing is, a lot of the towns that he went to did not care at all about national issues. So he eventually just abandoned all these talking points and went back to talking about all the programs that he had attempted to get done in Louisiana. So labor would become a bit of a bigger issue as the campaign progressed, mainly because Ransdell was anti-union. And since Huey was pro-union, the State Federation of Labor threw their support behind him and spoke about unionizing on his behalf. As the rhetoric grew, so did Huey's interest in campaigning on the subject. And then Ransdell decided to make the issue of labor more about an issue of race. So Joseph would make the claim that the only reason that he was anti-labor was because every labor bill that came before him in the Senate were also supported by the NAACP. Ergo, if Huey was for those labor bills, then he was clearly in support of racial equality.
Oh, Dusty, where is this going?
Worse. It goes worse.
No.
So Huey being Huey responded to this in a very fucked up fashion. His newspaper would run an article claiming that they had found a letter written by Ransdell in 1922, addressed to a black Republican leader in New Orleans. In the letter, he asked the leader to endorse someone for a federal job. But the real crime is that Ransdell started the letter with, quote, "Dear Mr." As the paper said, he had the audacity to speak to this man as if he was, quote, an old schoolmate. Or buddy.
Not a buddy.
Not a buddy, which is, we all know in Louisiana, a buddy is like the highest regard nickname you could give someone.
Yeah. Whew.
The paper finished things up by saying that a vote for Huey would be, quote, a vote for the right of labor and for white supremacy.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I've mentioned this before, Huey's weird racism, in that it's not the typical Southern racism you would expect. And I think, especially at this point, I realize the book I've been reading from likes Huey a little too much and might be trying to stand off his edges.
Just a tad of a hagiography we got going on.
Yeah, so I think it's important to say that, like, while Huey's not, the George Wallace sort of racist, he is kind of the prototype of the liberal racist, where it's like, he's had black friends before, but...
It's the I don't see race now. How are we going to get more of those uneducated white votes?
Yes. 100 goddamn percent. But, he's gonna pull out that racist bullshit if it's gonna help him in the moment. And to say the least, things were getting ugly, but they had yet to get objectively criminal. On September 1st, 8 days before the primary, the Ransdell campaign was approached by a man named Sam Irby. Sam had been hired onto the Highway Commission shortly after Long won in 1928. He worked there for 2 years until he resigned. When he called the Ransdell campaign, he told them that he had absolute proof of graft operating out of the office and that he could implicate Huey Long directly in it. There had been rumors that he had actually been fired, but aside from that, the Ransdell campaign knew that who this guy was and that he was probably being legit. On top of this, Sam also had an incredibly interesting connection to Huey. Sam's wife was the aunt of Huey's personal secretary, Alice Lee Grosjean, and his potential secret paramour.
Ooh.
So, as we all know, Huey hired a teenage secretary in his early political days. She has been his personal secretary all this time, and it's heavily implied that the two are fuck buddies. Yet to be proved ever,
Yet to be
but
proved.
highly
She
alluded.
also was great at carrying cash on her personhood, which is somewhere on her body.
Yes. I mean, if only we all had that skill. So the Ransdell campaign is like, all right, Grafton the Highway Commission, that tale as old as time. People have been stealing from that thing forever and no one cares. But proving that Huey's cheating on his wife with someone much younger than himself, that's a spicy meatball. We can run with that. So to make things even more fun, Sam was actually best friends with Alice's ex-husband.
This is a small, small world.
There are 15 people in Louisiana.
They really are.
And so with all these connections, the Ransdell campaign immediately said, please come to us and tell us everything you know. So once the campaign heard Irby out, they recommended that he present his evidence to the district court in Baton Rouge. Irby would visit the branch office of the Attorney General in New Orleans, and after the district attorney there heard him out, joined him on the trip to Baton Rouge to be able to talk to a higher level judge. The duo held a private conversation with Judge George Favreau, and reporters were waiting outside the courthouse. Irby offered to give them all the info that he had, but the press immediately shut him up, alluding that if you tell us anything, you're gonna fuck up the court case.
Like, no, we really want this to go through.
Irby returned home to New Orleans, but turned right back around to travel to Shreveport to file a slander suit against Huey and his former boss, O.K. Allen. Apparently, this was because Huey and O.K. Allen both told Sam's wife that he'd gotten wasted at a hotel in Baton Rouge and beat up 2 women.
What?
Not one, 2.
First of all, I need a diagram for how everyone is related in this little hot mess.
Yeah.
Like,
so O.K. Allen was running the Highway Commission. So he was technically Sam's boss. Huey's governor. You got the ex-husband who's just there. Sam's wife is the aunt of Alice Jean, and Sam is best friends with Alice Jean's ex-husband. Of course. The aristocrats.
Great. Yes. Great, thank you.
And so OK and Huey tell Sam's wife that he was like helicopter punching every woman in sight, just spinning around in circles, fists akimbo. And
you think I'm having an affair? Well, you beat up strange women.
You're the worst person in a mosh pit.
Yeah.
So he immediately told his wife that he would sue Huey and OK for $50,000 and that he had to leave immediately to Shreveport to file the charges. Like,
and I gotta go.
Which in and of itself sounds kind of shady. Like if you're with a partner and you're like, I heard you beat up 2 women. It's like, who said that? You know what? I'm so mad. I'm going to leave the conversation now, go to a completely different city, and I'm going to file charges. Oh, I'm so mad.
I have to get in my car because the fax machine hasn't been invented yet. I have to be there in person.
I am going to go call Internet Explorer himself and yell at them for putting that pornography on my computer. Harumph.
A letter would not express the disappointment.
I mean, also, I'm not alluding that he beat up 2 women and then left town. I don't think he did that, but it's just such a funny series of events. So in Shreveport, Sam meets up with Alice's ex-husband, and they decide that they're going to tell reporters that they plan to file a slander suit after the primary election, which is, a few days away. And until then, they went into their hotel to seclude themselves from the public.
So that they wouldn't punch anyone.
Right. I'm not going to helicopter punch anyone.
Allegedly.
And then it gets weird. So hours after...
Now it gets weird?
Now it gets weird. So hours after talking to the press, the Shreveport police get a call and Sam saying, there are some men who say they're police trying to break down my hotel door. Could you send someone?
Could you please send the real police?
After hanging up, he then goes to the window of the hotel and starts yelling for help.
Oh, God.
This does succeed in getting the press to show up to find out what the fuck is going on.
Okay.
And they arrive, they go to the hotel desk, and they find out that Sam and his friend checked out hours ago.
What? Who's in the hotel, Dusty?
The press couldn't find them in Shreveport, couldn't find them in Baton Rouge, couldn't find them in New Orleans. The pair had seemingly disappeared.
When asked for comment, Huey Long said, Sam, he hasn't been alive in 7 years.
Oh, how dare you use my favorite joke at me? How dare you? I love it and fuck off. So we're going to do the first of a few rewinds for this episode.
Yes, rush them on me.
So Huey had caught word about what Irby and the Ransdell team were up to. He wasn't worried about the Highway Commission stuff due to like accusations coming from there just being a thing. And for the slander charge, Huey was more amused than he was scared by it. But what had him worried, though, was that Sam was in Shreveport, and Irby was a notoriously loose-lipped drinker. And if some of Huey's enemies in Shreveport found Sam, got him a bucket of whiskey, he was probably going to say something about Huey and Alice at some point. And, you know, it was a topic that very much could destroy his political career, let alone running for Senate. And sure enough, Alice would call Huey to tell him that Sam and her ex-husband were drunk out of their minds in their hotel room, and her uncle was preparing to tell the press that Alice and Huey were having an affair.
Well, what else are you supposed to do in Shreveport?
You check out the Shreves and some ports? I don't know, you catch a University of Louisiana football game?
Is there an LSU there? I thought that was in Baton Rouge.
Oh no, it's just regular UL. And so Huey had to call an emergency meeting to figure out what the fuck to do about this. Earl Long, somehow the most unstable of the Longs, the man who bites when he fights, opens the meeting by saying, we ought to just kill him. Just kill them both. Huey gets so mad that he physically throws his brother out of the room, saying that he would rather exit politics entirely than kill a man. So Huey decides to take the more sensible option and just kidnap him.
Sure.
Yeah, it's not murder. It's just forcibly someone to go somewhere they don't want to go.
They're drunk. Will they even notice?
So when Irby called the cops about a group of cops trying to break down his hotel room, it wasn't entirely wrong because it was state cops that had been working with Huey for a long period of time. The state cops were also with Huey's brother-in-law, Dave McConnell, who was Rose's brother. And Dave happened to be friends with Sam and was able to gain access to the room based on just friendly conversations through the door and Sam being drunk. Sam and the ex-husband were then placed in separate cars and taken to remote locations. Papers quickly seized on the events, and the DA's office in New Orleans was so furious that they got a writ from a federal judge to immediately charge the cops involved in kidnapping both men and charged Huey Long with abduction. When the writ was delivered to Huey, a reporter had snuck in amongst the usual crowd of Long supporters. Huey noticed the reporter and began to demand who he was. When the reporter identified himself, Huey flew into a frenzy and called the man a son of a bitch, which is pretty par for the course for Huey.
Yeah.
The reporter responded by punching Huey in the mouth because he yelled a swear at him. A pair of Huey's bodyguards grabbed the reporter by the arms. They searched him for weapons, none were found, which caused Huey to calm down a little bit, and said the reporter had really messed up because you just punched a governor. The reporter said it, is appropriate to do since Huey swore at him, so Huey punched him in the face while he was being held.
What? All right, so we good?
Well, and following this, Huey declared the two even and then apologized for swearing at him.
Great, yeah, fine.
I mean, I hate the logic, but it kind of makes sense. But also, if you're going to punch a guy, don't, have people hold him by the arms and then, take a fucking sucker swing at him.
That was poor form,
yeah.
Huey.
So Huey would have to appear in court on September 10th, the day after the primary, to explain himself for all the abduction stuff. But Huey wasn't that worried about how the trial would go, especially since it was the day after the primary. But he got a real fun idea on how to really screw things up. He wrote up a document and directed Dave McConnell to go down to where they were keeping Sam Irby and get him to sign it. When Dave arrived at the location, which is a hidden camp along the ocean, he found Sam fishing and drunk. Irby immediately signed the paper without reading it, and then a car had been sent for Sam to drive him to the Roosevelt Hotel in New Orleans. While Sam was being driven up, Huey contacted all the city press and told them to come to the hotel for a huge press briefing on September 7th. And finally, he got all radio stations to broadcast the event. When Sam got to the hotel, he was rushed to Huey's suite. In the room was a microphone, a bunch of bodyguards, a couple of reporters that Huey liked, and Huey himself. He then presented Irby with the statement that he had signed and told him that since he signed it, he would like for him to read it over the microphone live on the radio. He read the statement declaring that it was actually a complete lie that Huey had kidnapped him. He had actually gone to Shreveport to entrap Huey's enemies, claimed that State Representative Cecil Morgan and Harney Bogan gave him a bribe from Joseph Ransdell of $2,500, and then arranged the kidnapping to escape the city unharmed. And when his speech was done, Irby was rushed from the room, shoved into a car, and driven out of the parish while city police followed them, trying to arrest him before he left, but lost track of the car during the chase.
Okay. What?
On September 11th, Irby would talk to the courts and requested that charges of abduction be dropped, and that Huey was just helping him.
Wow.
Sam Irby would eventually write a book called Kidnapped by the Kingfish, where he would recount the experience and say, yes, I was kidnapped. Also, I was drunk. Please buy my book. I need money.
I need the court fees really started racking up.
Yeah, judges get real mad when you suddenly decide, no, he didn't abduct me, honestly. Yeah, so we've gotten to the part of Huey's moral compass where he's kidnapping people.
You think you're not going to do it, and then you wake up one day and it's just so easy. It's like breathing.
When your brother posits murder as an option, kidnapping does sound a lot better.
It's a shifting goalpost syndrome.
To make things even more tense, while this whole kidnapping thing was going on, the old regulars in New Orleans got city police to harass meetings of Long supporters and had many of the local Long leaders arrested on just random bullshit charges. In response to this, Huey sent a large force of the state police to the city to protect his supporters. The New Orleans chief of police then had 100 of the said state police arrested for disturbing the peace. Rumors began to spread through the city that state police were planning a raid of the jail to rescue their co-workers. In fear of a miniature war in the city, leaders made a deal with Huey. The jailed police would be released so long as Huey himself led them all out of the city, which he did, and then he sent most of them back to the city the next day for election day.
How is it just not anarchy all the time in the state?
I mean, it's, small changes. It's, frog in a pot sort of shit.
Yeah.
So it'd been a wild month. Or as the New York Times put it, it was a campaign that was, quote, as amusing as it was depressing. Whether or not Huey would win would be decided within a few minutes. Senate races typically didn't get a ton of turnout because once the old regulars decide who they wanted, not a lot of people felt compelled to actually go out and vote. It was just a certain thing. But when the size of the vote count came in, it was incredibly obvious that Huey was going to win. When the counts were all done, Huey had won 57 to 43. And since there was no Republican candidate, the job was all Huey's. At the age of 37, he would accomplish step 3 of his plan to eventually become president. That being said, this was also the first of Huey's elections where accusations of voter fraud would make themselves known. Now, the book I read would not implicate Huey in these plans. And I would agree because the plans, if they were true, were real dumb. In some parishes, the voters were really cool about it and voted in alphabetical order. And in some parishes, you had some celebrity guests showed up. Actor Charlie Chaplin, boxer Jack Dempsey, and baseball legend Babe Ruth teleported to Louisiana, took up residency, and voted for Huey.
Well, maybe they're just known as Charlie Chaplin in that town.
I'd believe that for Charlie Chaplin or Jack Dempsey. Those can be common names. Babe Ruth, not so much.
Not so much. But it's just like, oh, no, you're talking about Ned down the street. No,
Ned Dempsey? The guy who invented 2-mile-an-hour demolition derbies? Yeah, that guy's a nut.
We just call him Babe Ruth so much that it's listed on his voter registration. No, everyone knows Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
No, not the Babe Ruth. It's
no, we call him Babe Ruth because he gets drunk and hits things with bats.
Yeah.
And despite all these claims of voter fraud, nothing came of it. And a few months later, Huey would win the general election, earning all but 24 votes, which were scattered write-ins. So fresh off his giant victory, Huey called a special session of the legislature. Within a week, they would pass a multitude of bills, including a public infrastructure improvement plan for New Orleans, the building of a brand new Capitol building, which Huey wanted to be a skyscraper, and he got his way. With Earl in particular hated the idea because he said it looked like a damn silo.
Modernity.
But most importantly, one of the bills officially revoked all of the impeachment charges against Huey for good.
Hey-o. Suck on that, haters.
And then Huey did some wacky shit to celebrate.
Oh, no.
First, in a bit of sad turn, Secretary of State James Bailey died of a heart attack, which meant that Huey got to name his successor. And Huey chose Alice Lee Grosjean.
His secretary?
Yup, to finish out the rest of the term.
As Secretary of State?
Yep. I mean, she's Secretary of Huey. Why couldn't she be Secretary of State?
Huey is the state.
Yeah.
Ergo,
Mm-hmm.
Huey D.
Now, Alice did say that she did not plan to run for office in 1932 for re-election, mainly because she already had a job lined up to be Huey's secretary in Washington, D.C., and why would she turn that down to enter politics?
Yes, Smart move, Alice.
Second, Huey ended up getting a college degree. Loyola University
Ooh.
of New Orleans granted Huey an honorary degree as a doctor of laws in honor of his political successes. But it was more likely they gave it to him as thanks for extending the free textbook program to Catholic youths as well. So after all this time, Huey is given a degree.
You know, in a way, it was kind of his long game the whole time.
Yeah, it's infuriating and I hate it, but it's an honorary degree. What are you going to do?
Really, the better question is we need to be asking ourselves, Dusty, how could we have Huey Longed our MFA?
Oh my God. It's infuriating. I mean, God, we'd have to run for some sort of political office when we were 20. So,
Yeah, we
let's
become
use that Wayback Machine.
alderman of Evanston.
Oh my
Is
God.
step one.
It's not an easy race. You have to be rich and
And you have to
live
have
there.
aldermen in
Yep.
Evanston.
What do they use? Like ward leaders or something?
Do they have any? I mean, it's just
Yeah, they have
Evanston. I just assume, okay.
Yeah, I think they actually have aldermen.
All right, excellent.
Yeah.
Ward leaders of Evanston.
Now you've learned about Chicago's suburb politics. You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right, where were we? Oh yeah. So going into 1931, the first half would be pretty boring, at least by Huey standards. But it was mostly hiding a huge surprise coming in July. In the wake of crushing the senatorial election, the old regulars had to strike a deal with Huey to at least maintain their existence. And initially it was more of a peace treaty to pass Huey's plans by the summer of 1931, because Huey was now pushing to absorb the old Louisiana politics into his own machine. And thanks to his immense power with the people that now extended well into New Orleans, Huey was able to force the old regulars into endorsing his choice for who would replace him as governor. And he would pick O.K. Allen, his highway commissioner, his genius in the House that rallied everyone together to support him on day one.
Wait. Can I guess what his campaign slogan was? He's not great, but he's okay. Okay, Allen.
You know what? That's really good foreshadowing.
Oh no.
But also in the deal is he got the old regulars to agree to let Huey personally select House candidates for 8 out of the 17 wards in New Orleans and 3 Senate candidates from the 7 city districts. And in return, he promised he would stay completely out of the city elections in 1934.
I thought you were going to say, and in return, he wouldn't abduct anyone.
Here's a sandwich. So the choice of Allen simply came down to one fact. To quote a leader within the Long Circle, Allen will do anything you want. Nobody else will. Huey can be in Washington and still run things down here. The 1931 gubernatorial election would get its fair share of other competitors to face O.K. Allen. There would be member of the Public Service Commission, Dudley LeBlanc, who was like a French Catholic guy who could probably get the votes in the Southwest, but nowhere else really. There was aristocratic lawyer George Guion, and Paul Sears running.
Oh no!
Why, Paul? Huey named John Fournet, who is the Speaker of the House for Huey, to be the Lieutenant Governor for O.K. Allen, and he mainly did this as a way to kind of keep Earl Long from taking the spot. So Earl thoroughly believed that he had done so much for his brother that he deserved the Lieutenant Governor seat. The only problem, though, is that O.K. Allen was a dude you could bully to do anything, which is perfect for Huey. As they said, he'll do anything you want. And as long as Huey's the most bullying person around him, Huey can essentially still be governor while he's a senator. But if Earl's there, Earl will bully Allen more than Huey, and on a more regular basis. So the last thing he needs is Earl as lieutenant governor.
Earl sounds like the nice guy TM of the family and of Louisiana politics.
Just saying milady in weird terms.
Yes. And then when you're around Earl for too long, he's just like, I signed off on those bills. I think I am owed the courtesy of a higher position in this government.
I am turning in my good brother points, sir. I only bit 6 guys last week, but it was in your honor. And so out of fury of being spurned for this position, Earl decides he's going to run independently for lieutenant governor as George Guion's running mate.
God, there's nothing like family.
And to make things even funnier, Julius Long decides he's going to campaign with Earl and leave Huey in the dust.
Also, Mom never liked you.
Yeah. In actuality, the entire Long family decide to support Earl in this decision, except for Huey.
Hilarious.
While everyone was more focused on the upcoming gubernatorial race, Huey took up a bit of a national cause. In the midst of the Depression, the price of cotton had collapsed. Very simply, 1931 was a record-breaking year, and farmers ended up producing far more cotton than there was demand. And this led to the price of cotton being less than the cost than it was to grow it.
Ooh.
Fearing this happening again in 1932, the Department of Agriculture proposed the idea of cotton farmers voluntarily reducing their acreage, or growing less. The problem with this, though, is there was no real way. It was all voluntary, so there was no way to make farmers do this. It was just a polite request. And this infuriated farmers, and the plan pretty much fell apart in its infancy. Huey ended up backing an idea brought to him by Louisiana farmers, and that the nation should pass a law that outright banned the planting of cotton for all of 1932. The idea was that when, there was a bunch of leftover cotton from 1931, you could hold on to it and then sell it at a higher price throughout 1932. And then when it's all gone, you just start growing again in 1933 and everything's fine again.
Yeah, and if the weevils get to it between those two times, then suddenly you've got demand for that sweet, sweet cotton.
I mean, you mentioned boll weevils. Huey did say that this plan was really good because if you're not planting cotton, you're going to starve boll weevils.
Oh, fair enough.
I'm not sure if that's how it works, but it's a cute turn of phrase.
I'm not sure what boll weevils look like. Are they rodents? Are they, they're bugs, right?
Yeah, they're like big ticks, but they like cotton. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not from the South. I don't know.
Sure.
So Huey would spend the year contacting the governors of the 7 largest cotton-growing states, appealing to them to accept his plan. He promised that if the other states joined Louisiana, he would ensure that the bill would be passed immediately. His work resulted in a conference held at the Roosevelt Hotel in New Orleans, but it really wasn't respectfully attended. Only 2 states would send their governors, and the other 5 would send various representatives and dignitaries. But in conclusion, they did accept the idea of passing this bill, but on one condition. Texas also had to sign on to the plan, and Texas did not want to.
No, they still want to be their own country.
I believe, as they say, if you would like Texas to change what they are doing, it is best not to harass them about it.
Also, I think it's like mazel to Huey getting all these people together in one room, but I just feel it's like, how did they not restart the Confederacy? It's like, well, we're all here, so...
I mean, it probably doesn't help that Huey's the one progressive in the room.
Yeah.
We probably like, we gotta stop that.
That's new business. We're talking old business, guys.
Guys, we're in the middle of the Depression.
Business.
This is
I
not
meant new
time.
business. Yeah.
Perhaps we should do this at a time of financial certitude.
Yeah.
So Huey contacted the governor of Texas and said, hey, you should pass this bill. The governor of Texas used a turn of phrase that if, I believe it is, and I'm paraphrasing, if Louisiana wants to raise this baby, they should wash it themselves first.
Jesus.
Yeah. And so Huey, being a man who loves a challenge, went straight to the legislature and said, hey, pass this bill banning the growth of cotton this year.
Boom.
And it passes pretty easily because it is highly popular amongst the conservatives in the House. And so once the bill is passed, he charters a plane for OK Allen so he could deliver the ratified bill to the governor of Texas in person.
Ooh.
He tracks him down at an airport in Houston, shows him the bill, and the Texas governor is too embarrassed, so he suddenly calls a special session of his own. But the bill in Texas doesn't pass, and it essentially kills off the entire cotton holiday movement, much to the relief of the 7 other governments who did not want to do it to begin with.
Well, Huey, you tried.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the 1932 gubernatorial election. The reason I don't focus much on the race is because neither did Huey. Once he had his own forces aligned with the old regulars, the election was in the bag. OK Allen would win with 56.5%, LeBlanc came in second, and the Guion Earl ticket finished third. And Paul Sear dropped out before Election Day. The election went so well, the long-endorsed slate of candidates won 54 out of the 64 parishes in the state. Huey was now nearly in the clear to go to Washington and finally become a senator. In 4 months, OK Allen would be inaugurated, and Paul Sear's dream of being governor would finally be dead. Or so it would seem. But first we have to go back to October of 1931. Paul Sear made the decision to go to Shreveport and filed a lawsuit to have Huey declared a senator. The argument was that when Huey certified the election results, he had mistakenly abdicated his role as governor, and since then, he's been in the office illegally. And to make things even more complicated, Paul Sear went before the clerk of the court and had himself sworn in as governor.
Okay, so who's really muddying the waters, Paul?
He then issued an official statement that he was now the governor of Louisiana, and his first action was to go to his hometown of Jeanerette and see what the fuck happened.
Sovereign statehood.
When Huey got word of all of this, he was in New Orleans. He called the state police and had them set up a perimeter around the governor's mansion to keep Cyr from entering. He then grabbed a pistol and drove to the Capitol building in Baton Rouge. A reporter that Huey brought with him noted that they were driving about 90 miles an hour from New Orleans to Baton Rouge during the trip and nearly crashed more than once.
God.
When they got to the Capitol, the cops were around the mansion and a group of National Guardsmen were around the Capitol building. Initially, Huey said that they could be dismissed, but rumors of Cyr building his own private army made Huey change his mind. Instead, he sent more state cops to the Capitol and had them place strategic machine gun nests near points of entry. Despite the serious turn, most people thought that it was, what's the phrase? Fucking hilarious. No one really expected Cyr to become governor, let alone lead his own army into the Capitol. And a brief meme of the time was for randos to suddenly declare themselves governor and joke that they had about as much claim to the office as Paul Cyr.
Cute. Okay.
To make the joke even more official, they would go to notaries in their towns, declare themselves governor, and then threaten to file suit to have Huey and Paul Cyr removed from office. The internet has always existed.
I love it.
This was picked up by the national press, and suddenly people in every state are doing this. People across the nation are declaring themselves governors of Louisiana. They're harassing their local notary of the public and sending bogus lawsuits across the country.
I forget the Lindy Hop. The governor craze is sweeping the nation.
Historian T. Harry Williams posits that Huey found this very funny. But more hilarious was that in taking the oath of office for governor, Huey found Cyr had made a vital error. In doing so, Cyr was publicly noting that he was no longer the lieutenant governor, which meant Huey could replace him.
Hey-oh!
Huey contacted State Senate President Alvin O. King and had him sworn in as the new lieutenant governor. And as memes do, the joke evolved into everyone now going to the notary and declaring that they were lieutenant governor.
It's always fun to know when, like, what pre-Twitter was.
I mean, it does sound like a lot of goddamn fun. You know,
yeah.
You're living in a world where the Dust Bowl is raging. You're trying to get food, but this is fucking funny. And the local notary is now making bank for the first time in their lives. So as angry men do, Huey and Cyr countersued each other. And since they did, it meant they could both go to court at the same time to settle the matter. Huey would argue his own case, and the court found that Cyr had no basis in his claim, while Huey did. Cyr would appeal to the Supreme Court in December, and Huey once again argued the case for himself. 2 days after the election, the Supreme Court voted 4-3 to uphold the finding of the lower court, and Cyr did not take it well. Upon hearing the news, Paul drove with a group of armed men from Jeanerette to Baton Rouge, got a room at the Heidelberg Hotel, and once again took the oath of governor. He declared that Alvin King had seized control of the government and that he was part of a rebel regime. His goal seemed to be to wait until Huey left the state, sneak into the governor's mansion, and get someone there to declare him to be the official governor. So Paul Cyr is operating an anti-government of Louisiana out of a hotel room.
This is better than the two popes.
It does make the meme harder to evolve because I'm sure people were like, I can't afford a hotel room. Like,
we can have hotel parties. Everyone, chip in $1.
So after hearing part of what Paul Cyr was doing, Huey was expecting that at some point he's going to try to get into the mansion and send this plan into fruition. So on January 23rd, Huey went to Washington, D.C. to officially make himself a senator. And on the 25th, he was sworn in as senator. And he immediately called Alvin King, who took the oath of office at the governor's mansion, which meant that Alvin King was now governor, and Paul Cyr had no chance to be able to sneak in and take the job.
Paul, you blew it.
Cyr would also issue proclamations that King wasn't the real governor and promised to sue him out of the office. But first, he has to move his stuff because he got kicked out of the Heidelberg Hotel. Huey had lived at the Heidelberg Hotel when the governor's mansion was a termite-infested mess. And so he was friends with the guy who ran it, and he gave him a call and was like, hey, could you do something funny and kick Paul out?
See, this is why it's always better to have a sense of humor, along with, like, an aggressive knowledge of loopholes.
Yes. So Paul Cyr moved to the much less fancy Louisan Hotel and called on people to contact him if they supported his case, that he could build together this army that people thought he had to begin with and finally take over the state of Louisiana for the people. And he waited and waited for one phone call. No one called.
Oh, Paul.
By this point, people were done with the joke.
Yeah.
Eventually, Cyr would give up and return to his hometown of Jeanneret. He retired entirely from politics and spent the rest of his life as a dentist.
Oh.
While Huey began his gubernatorial career with bravado, guile, and perfect planning, the start of his time in the U.S. Senate could not have been any more opposite. On day one, he introduced himself to everyone he could and spent most of his time sitting back, getting the lay of the land. Over the next couple of days, he occasionally spoke and once debated against giving someone a seat on a regulatory board, stating that he didn't feel right picking someone to regulate an industry that they had just worked in, which is a pretty common thing. Like, if someone's coming from JP Morgan or Chase Bank, probably isn't good to have them regulating their coworkers or their former friends.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And so that was his main thing. He's like, this probably not I know it's only my third day, but probably not a good idea.
Hey, I see a conflict of interest here. Hello.
But after about a week in the Senate, he applied for a leave of absence and returned home to Louisiana. The stated reason was his family was moving from Shreveport to a nicer home in New Orleans, and he needed to take a month to be able to help them complete the move. He returned to the Senate on February 25th, but once again left on March 1st for New Orleans. Huey was now passive and quiet in government. He'd been assigned to multiple committees, but he barely seemed to take part in their debates or inquiries. He was now out of place, and much of it seems to have come from a near immediate disillusionment with the whole body. I kind of assumed that he expected to dive into important work, to find maybe a bunch of like-minded senators who were really big on the progressive cause, or people who really had an impetus to do big things as quickly as possible. But as he would put it, they all suffered from political paralysis and were too afraid to bring up real issues. I think Huey expected to find equally passionate people, but was let down within days and had to retreat to Louisiana to deal with that disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
When he returned later in March, Huey began testing the waters on a major issue, and this would become his cause célèbre for his entire career: redistribution of wealth. He would take the floor to argue that the primary cause of the Great Depression was a handful of men hoarding all the cash. He also addressed directly that redistribution of wealth actually isn't a form of communism or socialism or anything like that. That in fact, ignoring redistributing wealth to people who were impoverished is something that will cause communism. That if you ignore this problem for long enough, people are going to start a revolution. And if that happens, Huey is not going to fucking blame them. He would call this speech the doom of America's dream.
Pony up, motherfuckers, you sons of bitches.
While senators may not have been won over, he did impress various correspondents in attendance. A lot of the press in Washington had heard stories out of Louisiana that made Huey sound like a walking cartoon, that he dressed in these outlandish suits with pink ties and big hats and smoked cigars all the time, and, was just this abnormal character. So when Huey showed up speaking very, clearly and citing sources and making good arguments, people were blown away by what they had been taught to expect.
Look at this dog. It plays piano.
Also, Huey was somewhat more radical than they expected, so that was fun. Yeah, one correspondent would write, quote, "No such stirring plea for the impoverished masses had been made in the Senate for years." To the press, Huey wasn't just another member of the Republican Democratic Progressive Caucus going after pragmatic change. He was the real deal, willing to fight for true change with all of his energy and proposing difficult but workable options. As for the Senate, leaders felt bringing Huey underfoot would actually be pretty easy. As an anonymous senator put it, quote, "We always have a wild man. We let him blow off steam and then tame him." Senate leadership did feel very confident in this, but the speech that Huey made ended up making him the de facto leader of the primary progressives in the Senate, which included George Norris of Nebraska, who was a gentlemanly older man who was a Republican as well, and took on a bit of a mentorship role towards Huey. There was William Borah of Idaho, who up until Huey showed up was known as the main speaker of the group, and then Fightin' Bob LaFollette of Wisconsin, who represented the fledgling Farmer Labor Party that would eventually mold into the Democrats as the years went on.
Hey.
Huey's progressive nature was a much better fit with the Republicans, and while being a Democrat, he would not be involved in any of the party's inner circle. It also didn't help that Huey would make Senate Majority Leader Joe Robinson of Arkansas his primary enemy. Robinson was a real piece of shit. He was a hard ass, and he ruled the entire caucus with an iron fist. He was an arrogant jerk who would publicly embarrass any Democrat who even slightly questioned him. And until Huey showed up, no one was willing to challenge him. No one really should have been shocked, though, because Huey's whole thing, since he started politics, is you find the biggest, loudest, strongest person in the room, and then you call them out until they're broken.
Yeah, then you call him a shit ass until they sue you.
Shit ass, I forgot about shit ass. His first real direct attack on Robinson would come on April 29th, 1932. On that day, he called up a resolution that he'd been working on to increase taxes on the rich. In particular, he proposed limiting yearly income to $1 million, which would be $21.7 million in today's money, and limiting gifts, inheritances, or other bequests to $5 million, or around $108 million in today's money. He didn't give any details on how this would be regulated, and instead chose to use the resolution as an excuse to take the floor and attack Democratic leadership in the House and the Senate. He warned that unless Democratic leadership took his resolution seriously, the Republicans would take the legislature and the presidency in November. And then Huey dropped the real bombshell. He looked at Joe Robinson and he said, "I am resigning all of the committee positions that you gave me." Essentially saying, you don't own me.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do.
I can't be bought, motherfucker.
This resolution lost on a voice vote, a very loud and angry voice vote. And Robinson retorted to Huey's speech with a lot of sarcasm and anger. And since Robinson fed the troll, Huey made it his goal to provoke him whenever he needed a boost to his national profile. 2 weeks after all this, Huey would conduct a mini filibuster in regards to a revenue bill, a bill that would eventually be known as the Glass-Steagall Act.
Oh.
Huey was against it, and he began his filibuster by reading out all the corporations in Arkansas that he believed were Robinson's law clients. He read some poetry, he insulted Robinson until he was reminded by multiple members of the Senate that there are strict rules about insulting each other on the Senate floor. And then he paced between his desk and the center aisle, gesticulating wildly and almost hitting people in the face multiple times.
Love it.
And it's this last bit that really pissed off the conservatives in the Senate, because when you're speaking, you stay behind your fucking desk. You don't move around. You stay behind your desk because it's decorum. The filibuster wasn't so much to stop the bill, but to once again show people he was scared of no one in his fight for the common man. He would eventually end his filibuster, which was followed by a debate on adding tariffs to the bill. Now, Huey supported tariffs, which is a big no-no for Democrats at the time. And when his fellow Democratic senators got mad at him, he brought up specific examples from other bills of conservative Democrats supporting tariffs, but only when it affected their own states positively.
So how about that?
Oh, and they got furious because once again, that is a breach of decorum, sir. You are insulting our honor by showing what we did? Harumph, sir.
Huey is a koi fish that had outgrown his pond in Louisiana. This is old school Huey. I'm loving this.
King koi fish. What are you going to do?
King koi fish. Damn it.
So following this chaos, Huey once again takes a leave from the Senate and returns to Louisiana. Now, he would say it was because Washington didn't need him and he needed a rest. But in truth, it was to kind of give OK Allen a performance review before his first ever legislative session. So it turns out that Allen wasn't really great governor material. He was bad at remembering names and faces of people, which is really important if you like glad hand and, remember favors.
Yeah, it's one of numerous reasons why I will never go into politics.
There's one story where OK Allen is at a fundraiser. And he thinks he recognizes some dude, and he is like, "Hey there, boy, how's your dad?" And the guy responds, "Dead." So, OK Allen, he's like a little embarrassed, like, "Sorry to hear that." And he walks around the room. He goes up to another guy, and is like, "Hey there, boy, how's your dad?" And the guy responds, "Still dead."
No.
It's my worst nightmare. And also, like I said, he's a guy that can be very easily bullied, to the point that Earl Long had a fake story that if OK Allen was in the governor's office signing legislature, if a leaf blew in and landed on his desk, OK would sign it.
Boo.
Yeah. And that's why he's not the better Long. He's the bitey. He's the mean one, not the joke one.
He's a batter.
And so, he wasn't really doing a great job in the first few months as governor, so Huey had to crack the whip. He really had to bear down on OK. And he did this by telling him to shut up in every single meeting that they had. He would berate him until OK just kind of became a shell of himself and stopped talking during these meetings. It got to the point that whenever Huey would return to Louisiana, OK would stand up from the governor's desk, walk out to the secretary desk and sit there, while Huey went to the governor's desk and did the job.
No, this is terrible management. Also, it's management that shouldn't be occurring at all.
Nope, no, it's highly illegal.
Now I feel bad for okay Alan. I know he's just okay, but
yeah,
goddamn.
Yeah, it's I guess if you're gonna be a tyrant, it's always good to have, a Jerry, I guess. It's always good to just have a
Yes.
weak-willed, kind person.
Yeah, just wants to do good government.
The new legislative session was set to begin, and for the first time in years, the legislature could do their work without direct influence from Huey and him bothering them. But wait, we know that can't be. Oh my god, that's the Kingfish's music! That's right, from the top rope. Huey Long lands in the State House. I'm back, motherfuckers. What, you think you can kick me out? You think DC could contain me? I'm back, bitches. And I have brought 4 bills that you're gonna pass. They were all tax bills. And people kind of knew they were coming. It was taxes on things like tobacco and soda pop and, that sort of shit.
A good time.
Right. And so the way things typically go is, you read the bills, they get introduced to the legislature, they're then sent to committee. While they're in committee, lobbyists talk about the pros and the cons of the bills, and, you get more information about it. Then it goes back to the House, they read the bill again, then you vote on it, then it goes to the Senate, and that entire process gets repeated.
And that's why we still have daylight savings.
And so there are a bunch of lobbyists there for like tobacco and Coke, just waiting to talk about why you shouldn't tax Pepsi. And Huey just takes everything over. So Huey decided to enact a sort of a speed run for law passing that he learned from former Governor Orem L. Simpson back in 1927, just shortly after the flood crisis was destroying everything. Because they had to pass laws fast. They needed to get money down and to fix everything as quickly as they could. So Simpson developed a manner to quickly pass relief bills within 5 days. So the legislature would have to agree to suspend the rules by a 2/3 vote, which Huey had in the House and the Senate. This meant that just before midnight, the bills could be introduced and read to the House and then submitted to the committee. Minutes later, if they so wished, committees could then return the bills to the House. The bill would then be read again, but you didn't really have to read much more than the title, and you could read it as fast as you wanted.
Like an auctioneer?
Essentially, yeah. You could mumble it. You could just speed through the bill as quickly as you could. Then it's voted on by this House, and then it's sent to the Senate, where that process is repeated again. So
and this is happening at like 11:39 p.m.
Mm-hmm, yep. So essentially, a bill that would normally take a couple weeks to pass, you can now pass a pack of bills within 5 days. So Huey enacted this plan, and thanks to a supermajority, he was able to push all of these new taxes through without a second of debate. My personal favorite thing is when it came time for the witness testimony for these bills, the lobbyists were no longer asked to be present. The only witness was Huey Long, who was acting as a concerned citizen.
Yeah, concerned citizen for the federal government. Let's keep this moving.
And so this became the very first of many special sessions that Huey would have OK Allen call for the sheer purpose of pushing through any old thing Huey decided should be a law in the state.
Is he? I mean, okay, great, but what's he doing as a senator?
Fixing Louisiana. Making a stuffed shirt from Arkansas mad. But actually, that is a really good question. And Una, I think we're going to cover that question in the next episode. Yeah, I already spoiled it at the beginning. We're just going to start the next episode here in a bit. So we'll see you next time on Gadfly in a week. But for Una, 3 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. Gadfly is a production of Added Serotonin. Our episodes are edited by Brianna Valentine of Rem Alternus Productions. Our theme song is Sophomore Makeout by Silent Partner, and you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at GadflyPod.
Ready to level up your cosplay game? Check out the Geek Forge on Etsy. With a variety of props to give your photos that extra spark, you'll find just what you need. Hold magical fire in the palm of your hand, or take a potion to restore your mana. With a large variety of colors, you can choose your own magical flavor for your cosplay. Bring drama to your photo shoots with these vibrant props and more, all available at the Geek Forge. Are you ready to level up your cosplay?